Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 27 of X-Men, written by Jerry Duggan. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. Now the truth is, while everyone slept, the world changed and around the world secret prisons grew like unwanted tumors. One such example is the Henry Girich Re-Education Center on Randy's Island in New York. So with the mutants being gathered and sentenced to unlawful prisons, Kate vows to see all prisoners freed. Because on this day, Synch has tasked Kate with taking a census of every mutant within the prison because after the Hellfire Gala, every mutant remaining is now all considered X-Men. So with crimes against humanity under her belt, Kate is forced to sneak around using one of her old aliases called Shadowcat. And with all the chaos going on these days, it takes a lot to surprise her, and strangely enough today just so happened to be one of those days. Because the very next page, we discovered that Juggernaut was still alive after his battle with Nimrod. Because prior to this point I was under the assumption that Nimrod was able to seal the deal and kill Juggernaut, which I have to admit would have been a tall task to complete. So I'm actually happy to see that he was able to survive, and by the looks of it so was Kate. But despite his ability to overcome Nimrod's attack, he still manages to get himself captured by Orchis. Now, usually, under any other circumstance Juggernaut would just break out without a care in the world, but see, Orchis already found a solution to that problem. Because around Juggernaut's neck, they attached an adamantium coil which forced him to sit down out of fear of killing whatever mutant was connected to the other side. Because if Juggernaut was to run, then the person on the other side of the wall would end up headless. So with that restriction in place, Kate proceeded to phase through the wall to get a better look at the poor victim on the other side. And with that said, Kate's pleasant surprise turned into an unheard scream in her throat, because if she was honest with herself, she couldn't tell if Cyclops was asleep or drugged, but what she could tell was that he was still alive. So for a moment, Kate was on the verge of phasing scot-free. But something deep down within her stopped her, and instead, she chose to take a look within his body. And to her surprise, she discovered they had booby-trapped him. Because Orchis knew that one day someone would show up to rescue their fearless captain, and because of that, they placed a dead man trigger for some kind of bomb within his body. So with their hands tied, Kate decided to phase the coil off of Juggernaut's neck as a show of good fate as he waited for the cavalry to return. So in the meantime, Kate asked if Juggernaut could buy them some time, for tomorrow Kate is planning a breakout. So with that said, we also learned that the reason why Juggernaut is okay after the battle with Nimrod is because the magical gem that coursed through his veins heals him after every battle, which was more in line with what I thought Juggernaut was able to do. Now with their conversation coming to an end, Marco asks how many members of the X-Men survived, in which Kate informs Marco that they all are X-Men now, so they must resist. So with that out there, we fast forward to the Marlock's tunnels with the team regrouping after the conclusion of their mission. Because during Kate's census, she was able to recover a damaged Cerebro unit that Orchis had in its evidence locker. Now despite its damage, Kate hopes that it may still be capable of delving into a mind to recover memories of a certain person of interest, memories from Reed Richards. Because at this point in the story, the mutants aren't 100% sure that Reed Richards, from the Fantastic Four, would even cooperate with their efforts to restore the knowledge that Charles took from his mind. Because apparently, Reed has discovered a way to mask the X gene which could provide the mutants with a tangible tactical advantage against Orchis. Now originally this plan required Emma Frost to do the mind recovery, but due to her marriage with Tony, the task will have to fall to Rasputin. So with their plan all lined up, the team proceeded to go on a road trip to the family farm to talk to the man himself. And let me just say, this is a scene straight out of Harry Potter, hands down. But anyway, following that, we see Rasputin storming out of the car and heading straight toward the farmhouse. Because one thing about Rasputin we need to remember is that she is from a war-torn future, where war and conflict are a part of everyday life. So when the Thing approached her to stop her, Rasputin, without a care in the world, quickly knocked him to the side. Which is not something someone should do if they want to gain someone's trust. Now with Ben slow to recover, Synch and Talon quickly run to his aid while trying to explain how everything going on is a misunderstanding. But regardless, no matter how much they tried to explain the situation to Rasputin, she still maintained her stance on getting the information needed. So with the future Terminator on the warpath, Johnny the Human Torch quickly flew in to intercept her by encircling her with flames. But as we all know, her skin comes from the genes of Colossus, which means the fire has no effect on her at all. So with the conflict constantly escalating, Rasputin lugs towards Johnny and swings her sword in his direction, but horribly misses. So with Johnny clearly out of her range, he proceeds to tell her how she will never lay a finger on him. Now to his credit, he was completely correct, but see, Rasputin didn't need to touch him to win, for with a few well-placed thoughts, Johnny was knocked unconscious. So following that, Reed Richards and Sue walked out of the house to see what was going on, and almost immediately, Sue goes invisible while Reed uses his phone to scan the area. And while he was doing that, Reed comes across Rasputin and all her determination, and to his surprise, he determined that she was made up of several different mutants. But the part he wasn't sold on was who was responsible for creating her, because if he had to choose, he would say Beast or Mr. Sinister, but regardless of who did the deed, whoever was responsible was so far gone. So with his scans complete, Rasputin asked if he was Mr. Fantastic. In which, like a boss, he replied by saying, "Yes, I am, and I hope for your sake that my family is unharmed." So with the introductions out of the way, Reed asks why she was there, in which she states that she doesn't seek any conflict, she just requires the information in his brain that Charles and Magneto took from him. So with her intentions known, Reed tells her that he has it under control, and eventually, he will figure it out without their help. But see, Rasputin wasn't offering help, but rather she was demanding the information because she didn't care if he ever retained the info, all she was worried about was requiring it. But see, Reed Richards was not about to let her do as she wished, because he stated that his mind was once entered without his consent before, and if he could help it, it would never happen again. So with no hesitation, Sue instantly put up a force field around Rasputin in an attempt to stop her in her tracks, but due to Kate's DNA she just simply phased right through it. So with nothing standing between Reed Richards and Rasputin, the Thing came storming towards her direction to give her a piece of his mind, but before he could do it, once again, Rasputin sent him flying. So with things heating up, Reed informs her that the only reason she is currently conscious is because Ben enjoys a good brawl, but if she insists on fighting then things can get rough. But just as he was saying that, Ms. Marvel attempted to stop the fight by extending her arm between the two sides, and declared that they are all really good friends. In which Rasputin challenged it by saying she did not understand. If they were their friends, then why would Charles take his knowledge, and on the other hand, why didn't they assist them in their time of need? So with that question out there, Miss Fantastic felt the need to bring up how they saved the world twice last week, which in all fairness Rasputin could care less about. But just like Kamala Khan, Reed Richards wanted to put an end to all the drama and mistrust. Because maybe things could have been different if he actually worked alongside Charles rather than plot alone. But what Charles and Magneto did was wrong too, but perhaps his fear for his son and someone else's care could have clouded his judgment. So in the end, Reed Richards agreed to help them and give them his consent to enter his mind. So with that done, he also reminded them that Miss Fantastic would be standing right next to him during the whole process. Because if she even catches a hint that something is wrong, then she would create a force field within Rasputin's brain and kill her on the spot. Which oddly enough Rasputin could respect, for she liked his wife. So with Rasputin putting on the helmet, they dive into his brain, at the point where the memory takes place, but upon getting there, they discovered that Charles hollowed out the knowledge to the point where not even Rasputin could access it. Now on a side note, this was something Reed Richards had suspected, but the brain can mend itself, because it is malleable, and because it is malleable he would find a way to work around it. So just as the team was hitting a dead end, Ms. Marvel remembers something that was brought up in conversation with Charles before the gala. And that was how the Terrigenesis that gave her inhuman gifts ended up masking her mutant one. So with that said, Reed Richards' eyes lit up as he finally remembered parts of what he had forgotten. Which was, in higher concentrations, the mist can hurt and even kill the mutants, but in lower targeted doses, they are able to camouflage the X gene. Which means if they could successfully pull this off, then they would pretty much become invisible to the Stark Sentinels and free to move around as they wish. So as Reed Richards dived head first into his research to better refine the science behind it, he vows that whenever they need their help, they will be there. So with that said, the team loads back up into their car and hit the road. So following the game-changing revelation, we transition over to Dr. Stasis and Firestar having dinner at a table. And the purpose of this meeting is so Dr. Stasis could reveal what plans he has for Juggernaut. Because Dr. Stasis have found out that somehow someway Juggernaut have managed to escape the adamantium collar, but luckily for them, Nimrod was on site. So after a brief battle, Nimrod beat Juggernaut down again. So because of his unpredictability and threat level, Stasis thinks it would be best not to execute him immediately, but rather harvest the gem within his body and extract it surgically and then eat it. Because once he has control over the gem, he would become an even bigger threat to the world as Dr. Juggernaut. And to make things worse, he have already scheduled the autopsy for the morning, the same day as the jailbreak. So with that said, this issue of X-Men comes to an end. And to me, this wasn't really an action-packed comic, but rather it was more of a setting of the stage kind of thing. Because in this issue, we got the reveal of Cyclops' location alongside confirmation of Juggernaut's survival, which I think was a great move to have him survive the gala, given how his abilities work. But anyway, on top of that, we also get a method on masking the X gene, which is yet another game-changing discovery, which would help rebalance the scales between Orcus and mutant kind. And as for the Fantastic Four, their appearance in this comic was a nice touch, because with them being there we, as the reader, get to see the mutants repair broken relationships. So down in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.